Hi, my name is Robert Clewis, and I'm professor of philosophy at Gwynedd Mercy University in the greater Philadelphia area in Pennsylvania, USA. I'd like to talk to you about the 18th century Prussian philosopher Immanuel Kant and his thoughts on humor. That's right. As it turns out, Kant put a few jokes right in the middle of one of his major works, The Critique of the Power of Judgment, also known as a third critique, a work of what he called transcendental philosophy. In my book, Kant's Humorous Writings, an Illustrated Guide, I collected and commented on about 20 of these jokes and 10 witty anecdotes, which he often used to make a deeper philosophical point. Many other jokes come from his university lectures, especially his lectures on anthropology, which he gave over about 2 decades, starting in the 1770s. No. They are interesting on their own, but also because they reveal how his ideas on humor have been influential. And they also show his relation to his predecessors discussing humor. In humor studies, Kant is widely recognized as one of the most important contributors to incongruity theory. And this is the idea that when we find something humorous, it's because we are responding to an incongruity or contrast between our expectations and what we actually perceive or find before us. Many, even most, humorous content involves incongruities that, in the right conditions, are judged to be humorous, like puns, word plays, unintended mistakes, humorous misprints, and even more traditional jokes with a punchline. Kant's jokes, or his attempts at jokes, also show what he considered amusing. To come up with his ideas about humor, he took from writers such as Samuel Butler, Jonathan Swift, Lawrence Sterne, Edward Young, and Voltaire. The sayings and jokes are not only interesting on their own, they also contribute to a deeper understanding of Kant as a writer, a philosopher, indeed a philosopher of humor, as well as a teacher at the Albertina University of Königsberg in present-day Kaliningrad, Russia. Like Moses Mendelssohn and Francis Hutcheson, Kant was an incongruity theorist. But unlike them, he added his own spin to it, putting it in terms of his theory of free mental play between the imagination and understanding. In addition, he combined incongruity theory with other theories that were around at the time, superiority theory and release theory. Superiority theory holds that we find something humorous because we feel superior to, or elevated above, the object or butt of the humor. Release theory maintains that when we feel comic amusement or laugh at humor, it's pleasant because it releases built-up psychological tension. In my book, I explain this further, and I also ask 3 main questions about his theory of humor. What, in those 7 pages in the third critique, did Kant think about wit, whim or caprice, and naivete? Wit, or Witz in German, is the capacity to see connections among diverse particulars. So sometimes seeing those connections leads to incongruities or creates contrasts, which we sometimes find humorous. Whim, or caprice, Laune in German, it's a kind of gift. It's like a gift for being in a mood or having a humorous perspective, like when a comedian is able to tell a story, even one about a painful event, in a funny way. It's a kind of outlook that puts a humorous spin on things. Naivete is another 18th century concept. It refers to a natural innocence that can sometimes be funny, like when a child says something that's brutally honest. It exposes the artifice in adult human behavior. The next question I ask is, could there be a judgment of humor on analogy with a judgment of beauty or a judgment of the sublime? Now, technically, Kant does not say that there is a judgment of humor. But if we expand his account and suppose that there is one, like when we say, that's funny, it would be analogous to judgments of the sublime and the beautiful. But it wouldn't be identical or the same as these. And finally, how would his influential ethical theory be applied to humor? I characterize his account as soft ethicism. Ethicism means that his ethical principle, expressed in what he calls the categorical imperative, is overriding. It acts as a constraint on all action and speech acts, including joking. Soft means that there is some leeway or latitude we have when joking, especially with friends. He holds that we should not be held responsible for what one says in jest. For example, at a dinner party, since it takes place in the play frame, or what he calls the play space, the Spielraum. Still, and this is the ethicism, we should at all times respect the dignity of the other people we are joking with. Even if, it should be added, some of Kant's printed joking remarks went too far and are unethical or unjust. And I'm referring, for example, to some jokes or quips in the early 1764 work, Observations on the Feeling of the Beautiful and the Sublime. He implies that one should be able to respond or tease back. So it's not just a one-way teasing. And here I think we can see his ethical principle of shared dignity emerging. Everyone is on the same playing field. His aesthetic theory is based on the notion of a free harmonious play of the faculties of imagination and understanding. That is, the capacity for images and image making, and our faculty of concepts or concept formation. In another book, The Origins of Kant's Aesthetics, I looked at the development of his aesthetic theory. I found that once he had a theory of the harmonious free play of the faculties in place, he could then apply it to his thoughts on humor. And this gives us, I think, more reason to see his thoughts on humor as part of his wider aesthetic theory. In fact, in his anthropology lectures, he often discusses humor right alongside music, genius, free play, disinterestedness or being unbiased, and imagination. While the jokes might not be laugh out loud, you never know. You might be surprised by a joke or two. At the very least, his account of humor seems worthy of more sustained philosophical and historical attention. So maybe keep in mind the 18th century context of his jokes. And when reading his jokes, don't raise the bar too high. At one point, I was tempted to call the book Kant's Humorous Writings, I Wish They Existed.